Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. While everyone else is running reruns this 4th of July week, we are giving you a step above a rerun, and we are going behind the scenes, getting to know Ron and Kristin on a personal level. I hope you enjoy this. I know we're going to.
We sure are. It's only a slight step above a rerun, but
Yeah. We're like, hey, let's not rerun. We're not there yet. Let's actually take some time to throw together a behind the scenes. I mentioned I'm a peeping Tom of the mind, and I know, Ron, you really enjoy getting inside people's heads also and understanding what makes them tick. And if anyone wants to know what makes us tick, you're going to find out in this episode. So I want to go ahead and start out. I'm going to ask you the first question, Ron. So okay. I find your upbringing fascinating. Southwestern Virginia, Appalachian Mountains, son of a coal miner and coal truck owner. It makes me think of Soft White Underbelly's interviews with the Whitaker family of Odd, West Virginia. I know you weren't in West Virginia, but that's what comes to mind. How would your parents describe you?
Well, before I get into that, let's bring some clarity. I was on the West Virginia line. It's that little tip of Virginia down toward Tennessee, Kentucky. I could be in any of those places, rural area. And the fact that you compare, everything to the Whitaker family is why, this is why we don't trust Northerners or, California, at least California. I might give you a little break there.
I'm a step above California.
Are you really?
I'd say so.
Portland. Okay. Anyway, no, it's really, there are a lot of stereotypes. Some are true, some are not.
Yeah.
But my parents, I got to tell you, I'm really different, a lot different from my dad. A lot different from both my parents. So I think they think I'm a mystery. And I was always, even growing up, some of the guys called me a city boy because I really wasn't into hunting, which was strange for them. I was into sports, but Kristin, and it's no disrespect, I love going home. And by the way, you will never meet more, the people are so kind and wonderful. But I did know at a very early age, I'm out. And I traveled a couple of times, and that was all it took. And I just wanted to pursue something bigger and greater. I can remember sitting in the third grade, and when they would ask you what you want to be, the teacher would ask that. I can remember several of the male students would say coal truck driver or coal miner.
Wow.
And I knew in my mind, I'd looked at coal miners completely black with coal.
Right.
Even when they showered, it looked like they wore mascara. I knew that I was not going to pursue that. That's for sure. I didn't know what I was going to do. So my parents, I think they would describe me as driven, but I do think I was an anomaly for them. And I think I still am.
We'll have to get them on someday.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
That would be really interesting.
Kristin, kind of back at you. You grew up in the Pacific Northwest, wherever that is, in a suburban area. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, goodness. Well, I have a few, but when I think of my upbringing, I think of my favorite Christmas, and that was when I got, oh my gosh, have you ever seen those moon shoes? It was like little trampolines for your feet. So this one Christmas, I got everything I wanted. I got the moon shoes. I got this. It was like this light up stage it had a microphone and all the lights that would go off. But the best part was these spandex with like a rainbow stripe down the side. And I thought I was the coolest thing ever. But growing up in the Pacific Northwest was really fun. You're outside all the time, always hiking, or in the summer, you're going and jumping off cliff diving into the water, and it was just pretty low key. And then you'd go see a Blazer game every once in a while. So interesting upbringing, not so much, but just your pretty typical middle class suburbia upbringing.
Well, yeah, that sounds pretty normal. Sounds good though.
It was, yeah. I look back. I tell my parents, even though my parents are now divorced, they're good friends, but my mom will always check in with me. Gosh, did we screw you guys up? I'm like, no, I literally think of my upbringing as pretty, rainbows and unicorns. You guys did a good job faking it, I guess.
Tell your parents not to blame themselves for you, Kristin.
It's all on
fault.
me. It's all on me. Oh, goodness. Yeah. So, okay, Ron, what do you feel people misunderstand about you the most?
Well, as you know, Kristin, when you are heavily involved in social media, there are people that think, that you live on likes or any of that. Yeah. So I think I've been misunderstood more, even than when I was in federal law enforcement. I think I've been misunderstood by maybe just a few buddies or acquaintances, like, why are you posting on social media? Or, you have so many pictures of yourself. I've had people say that, number one, they don't understand marketing. That,
right.
The marketing companies that I've worked with tell me to post 3 times a day, and that's really difficult for me. You're a lot better at that. But they don't understand marketing, but they also don't understand the passion that I have to help leaders. And I went into this knowing what I was getting into. I didn't even want to, I went from trying to stay somewhat hidden and kind of secretive to really exposing myself to try to be a social media influencer. I did want to sell my book because I believe in that book. It was a life's work. So I think I'm misunderstood. I don't sit around. If I'm looking at likes, it's because I'm looking at algorithms and patterns. Right. I don't live on that. And I've had people say, I sent you a message. And I said, well, text me. Because what they don't know a lot of times is I post and then I walk away. I have to take breaks from it. So I think that's, in my later years, I think I misunderstood a little bit on the social media front.
Yeah, I completely feel you on that one. And
do you get the same stuff?
Oh yeah, not so much from my friends, my close friends, but people will call you, oh, you're so self-absorbed in the comment section and all of that. But to your point, they don't understand you have to put yourself out there. If you want to make a difference, make an impact, achieve your goals, there are sacrifices you make. And some of those sacrifices are that you are putting yourself out there. And I'm with you. I was relatively private until I had my personal accounts locked down. Like you had to know a lot about me just to even send me a friend request. And then when I made a change and decided to start standing up and speaking out, that's when I was very vulnerable. And it's taken years to get used to that.
Yeah. A quick side note, do you think it's more challenging for men than women? Do you think there's a gender difference because the reason I'm saying that, there's several female friends that I have that they do social media. Everybody loves it. Mm-hmm. The guys do, especially if it's attractive female, but yet I get harassed for it or joked with.
It's definitely different for men. Absolutely.
That's why I didn't do a lot of the dances that were really popular, Kristin.
I didn't do any of those, so I'm with you on that. But yeah, no, it's definitely tougher for men. I can imagine you get a lot more flack.
I'll tell you what, though, Kristin, if we get in the top 10 podcasts, I will dance. I will
All right,
dance
sounds good.
on video. Hold me to that.
I will. It's amazing.
Right. I got a question for you. What's a story that your family tells that you might share from your childhood?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so just so everyone knows, we did not prep for these answers, so I'm literally thinking on the fly. But when I think of the most told story, is the fact that when I was like 12 years old, this person, again, we lived in suburbia, excuse me. So this person just starts knocking on our door violently at like 2 a.m. And we're all waking up, like trying to figure out what is going on. And long story short, a woman had been tossed out of a car, a moving vehicle, by her boyfriend and ended up knocking on our door for help. She was bleeding because she had been road rash all over her and was belligerent. This is before cell phones, so she's wanting to use our home phone to make a call. I was 12. My sister's 5 years younger than me. I didn't like that she was putting my family in this situation. She was getting blood all over our phone. My mom was trying to be nice and clean her up. My dad was going to drive her somewhere that she was asking us to bring her to. And my sister's crying because it's freaky. And at that point, I said, stop. put your hand up, because she wasn't putting her hand up so my mom could bandage her. And something in my tone, I just started directing her. She listened. She stopped her shenanigans. I'm talking, she was flailing around like a fool. She stopped and she let my mom bandage her, and she didn't flail around anymore, because I took control of the situation. And my parents just love to tell that story, because I'm the type of person, I'll sit back in a room and I like to take a room in. I don't need to be the center of attention. I actually don't enjoy that. I like to watch everybody, and then I will kind of pick and choose who I go and mingle with. But I don't like when a situation is completely out of control, especially in our household where we are supposed to feel secure and safe and in control. And I wasn't having any of that. So my parents just love that one.
I thought this was going to be a heroic story where you called 911, you bandaged her up, you counseled her to break up with this guy.
No, we threw her ass out.
Yeah. There you go, folks.
Oh,
well,
goodness.
that's the end of the podcast.
No, okay. Here's what actually happened. My dad went and got our neighbor, and the two men ended up driving her together to where she was requesting to go, so that there wasn't liability just on one of us. So we did bandage her up, and we got rid of her.
So you do have family members that have compassion. Okay.
I do. It's there.
I'm glad to hear that. All right, Kristin.
All right. Let's see
I'm
here.
ready.
Okay. What's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
That's so easy.
Is it now?
My daughters, when
Aw.
people tell me that I have great daughters, they both make great decisions. My oldest married her high school sweetheart. They have a little boy. Like it's amazing. I've never had to deal with any issues, and my youngest lives with me. She's productive. She's finishing her degree. Like, I hear all these parents talk about, all the crises and things like that, and I never had to deal with that. So when people tell me that I raised two great daughters, that's the biggest compliment I'll ever get. Work-wise, anytime someone appreciates what you do, because I go out and train and I coach and I get a lot of compliments, but this happened the other day and it meant a lot to me. I was at a post office and ran into one of my prior employees who had went to a different agency. And you always know it's true when there's nothing you can do for them. You get a lot of compliments when you can help someone, when you can reciprocate. Right. But this individual said to me, "Oh my God, you need to go teach them how to lead. They're nothing like you. They don't run, the agency like you. Is there some way that you can get in there and do some training? These managers are terrible." And then they gave me specifics. But for him to compare me in that light with another agency in my leadership, that really did mean a lot to me. I drove off thinking that really felt good, because number one, it was great to see a prior employee, but when you have someone that gives you a compliment when you can't do anything for them, I think that was a really cool moment.
That would be. And the compliment about your daughters also, I've interacted with both of them as well, and they are amazing ladies. And so you've done a great job. And but I love your work story as well, because it makes a big difference when you're getting a compliment when you're someone's boss, or you have some type of power that they could benefit from. It's definitely a different feeling altogether. I like it. Yeah.
I was talking with my ex-wife the other day, and we're both so very proud of our daughters. Yeah. I love this question, Kristin. You got to answer this one.
Okay.
What's an insult you received that you're proud of, besides me just a minute ago?
An insult. Well, I did have a boss tell me that I was demanding. And I will tell you the situation, because I was like, you're right. I am being demanding in this situation. But I had a team where 3 people, I had taken on people from other teams. Basically, I had promoted up 3 different employees, and the people that replaced them were coming from other bank branch locations. Well, I inherited 3 people that were off on Thanksgiving week. All of them. And they all lived in a different state before they moved to Oregon. So they were all going back to see family. And I thought, what a jerk move to make them cancel those plans. It's not their fault. They all happened to come to me with the same week off. So I asked my regional manager to work with me on, let me take a few people from other locations. This is a team of 6. You can't have 3 people gone. You just can't. And so he told me, because I kept on him, I was like, I really need you to help me out with this. And I told him 6 months in advance. And nope, I ended up running the team on 3 people. I was in a teller window the entire week. But throughout the process, I kept, once a week I would check in with him. Have you spoken with anybody about this? So basically he said, Kristin, you're very demanding. And I said, you're right. I am doing this. I am being demanding for this week because my clients will suffer. My employees will suffer. And so I take that as a compliment. I did what I thought I needed to do for my clients and for my employees that were not on vacation. And I was called demanding and didn't faze me.
And you gave significant prior notice.
Yes.
There's really not a worse feeling as a leader when you're not supported by your superiors.
Yes.
I've been undermined before. And that's a real challenge.
Very frustrating. Very frustrating. There's a few things that, you kind of latch onto. I'm one of those people, I will forgive. I'm a very forgiving person, but I never forget. And I will never forget how that was grossly overlooked as a need.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. All right, Ron, if you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would it be?
Well, I guess I'll leave out Jesus and the disciples, but in history, it would be Abraham Lincoln. I am intrigued. I went to the Soldiers' Home and took a leadership training there, and it was a lot of people don't know this, he hated the White House. And he would ride a horse over to the Soldiers' Home where they ended up burying Northern slaves. But he spent a lot of the summer there, and a lot of his writings, a lot of his meetings happened there. As a matter of fact, I think it was Mark Twain commented that he literally saw Abraham Lincoln riding his horse over from the White House to the Soldiers' Home. Now later, they had a troop from Ohio that basically served as his Secret Service. So they were like, Mr. President, you're going to get assassinated. And so they began to ride with him. But I'm so intrigued by the way he thought, the way he had compassion, the way he showed leadership. And I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I would love to have coffee with Abraham Lincoln, for sure.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
And you're a history buff, so I thought that was the perfect one for you.
Yeah, that was a good one. It's killing me, though, Kristin. Can I bounce that back to you? Have you thought about it while I was talking?
Margaret Thatcher, I think, would be amazing. Because look at her upbringing was very middle class, if that, and just what she was able to achieve and who she was rubbing elbows with, the royal family, where they came with silver spoon in their mouth, and then she came from just very, very humble beginnings, and she lived life like she had already been canceled, and that's a newer term.
Yeah.
But she did not care. She made moves for her people that she felt was right, no matter the backlash. And I have a lot of respect for that.
Wow. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. This one is more just an interest to me. I hope everyone will find this interesting. I'm sitting here with bated breath, Kristin. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh my gosh. I am the queen of pet peeves. And so people are going to think I'm a jerk if I really dive into it. But let me just share a few, because I think this is funny. At least people have told me it's funny. When I was single, I had very odd pet peeves or things that would be red flags to me. And one of them was like poor credit, bad credit is a major pet peeve of mine. And I would if I was dating someone and they had to get a prepaid phone, they mentioned that they're on like a prepaid phone, I immediately cut ties. I didn't ghost them. I just verbalized that this wasn't going to work. So little things like that. Think about it though. If you are with someone who has bad credit or a bankruptcy or something like that, and then you want to go buy a home, you're screwed now because you're going to have a higher interest rate if you can even get a loan. So all of that. So those are my pet peeves in the dating world. There was a bunch of those. But a pet peeve today is going to be fearful, spineless people. I can't do it. I cannot stomach that type of person anymore. And I have really, my inner circle, I've shrunken it down intentionally to where I am with people that do not live by fear, people that are bold, people that don't self-censor. And it's a beautiful thing to surround yourself by folks that are truly free.
I find that very interesting because I begin to see my circle shrinking as well. Yes. Some of it happens organically, and some of it is just simply because I had to make choices, and relationships were toxic. But I think, and people can tell us, I think our audience will agree, the credit thing is a little beyond a peeve. I think that's just wise. If you're dating someone with financial problems, I guess I was looking for a little annoyance. Like,
you want a little annoyance?
Like, let me give you mine. I cannot stand to see people...
I put my papers down. Let me crack my knuckles.
I cannot stand to see people driving in the left lane, holding up traffic. They're doing like 60 when it's 70 or whatever.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that. And I think I had a relative that was a game warden, and that was his pet peeve. And I think he talked about it so much in the car that it just moved over on me, but it drives me crazy. I'm like, get over this. Is a passing lane and an emergency lane. What don't you understand?
Right.
So give us one more.
I can tell you what's a pet peeve. Let me give you a 4th of July pet peeve. So we're lighting fireworks off in our street last night, and these hoo-has just think we're just going to shut down our whole operation because you want to drive by. So while we're lighting things, they're like inching around. And I'm like, really? You can't? There's so many other streets you can turn down. You can't, wait a few seconds for us to light it off. So anyhow, we just stopped moving our stuff and kept lighting them and made people go around. But just the gall really irritated me. And there's plenty of that to go around, Ron.
It's so ironic because mine was these people that were shooting fireworks down the street, and I had to go to another street. I'm kidding.
I just stared at them as they drove by. I don't know. I get territorial sometimes. I'm like, this is Independence Day. You can go around, sir, ma'am.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So that's a pet peeve. Ron, what do you think the world is going to look like in 50 years?
50 years?
I know.
What world? Sorry, listeners. I try to be optimistic. There's so many things I could speculate on. Well, go back and listen a couple episodes ago. AI. There's no doubt that AI is going to dominate. I think a lot of the jobs will be tech jobs because you mentioned a pizza shop, right? Yeah. That you saw a pizza shop that had no employees.
Right.
Even though you said the pizza looked bad, let's be honest, we know AI evolves, so that pizza is going to get better and better. So I think that a lot of the job market is going to have to move toward tech, AI, and those kind of things.
Right.
Optimistically, I hope life will be great. I hope they'll come up with alternative food sources, alternative energy. They will be able to solve the world's hunger crisis. All of that optimistically would be wonderful in 50 years. The opposite of that, I'm not even going to go into.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Okay, you mentioned alternative food source. Are you going to eat printed meat?
No, when I say food source, I'm talking about ways that would generate more food, like undeveloped lands. I should have clarified that.
No, I'm just making sure because I won't be. What is that made of? Plant?
There's undeveloped
DNA.
Lands that if the technology was there, you could grow more crops, those types of things. I read a study once that a guy did, and I cannot quote it. I'd love to source it. But he did a study worldwide with the population, and he says if you factor the resources of the entire world, there's enough resources on this earth that everyone should have $11.5 million, the equivalent of that. So we know that the earth is packed with resources. It's the technology and understanding to get there. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. You've redeemed yourself. Just making sure you aren't on board with the 3D food printing. I'm like, someone wants to eat that. It's not going to be me.
All right, Kristin.
All right.
How about this? If you had to write a book, what would it be about? Like, you got to put it out quickly. What would you write about?
Well, I am in the process and I keep chipping away at this every week, but writing a book really about how to label and salvage relationships and understand a relationship for what it is. Good, bad, some you have to cut out. But how you do that? How do you salvage a relationship? I've mentioned my inner circle has shrunk down, and that's intentional. That's intentional. And that's okay. That is okay. You said the same thing for yourself. It is okay. But for a lot of people, it's very uncomfortable. Ron, I don't think you and I are the norm. We have this confidence and this ability to live life as though we've been canceled. That is definitely not the norm. We just dove into how hard it is for people to say no. And it's the same way with relationships. People hold on to them or they get offended by them for way too long. So I am currently writing a book that is going to help people understand how to identify, label, store away a relationship, use it for what it is. And it's I haven't seen anything of its kind, and it's what I live by, really. And I think it's going to be pretty powerful. And I have to tell you, when I was in 8th grade, I had all my friends turn on me. So I found myself popular. And then one day, I remember walking around with my group of friends on the playground in 8th grade. And I heard someone say, "Oh, is she following us?" And they were talking about me. Yeah. And I'll tell you what it was over. I had just had a big Halloween party at my house. And I had a cat at the time, and my cat had pooped in the corner of my room. I might have told this story before, and I didn't know it was over there. This is embarrassing, but it's just life. I didn't know it was over there. One of my friends discovered it, and they were all like, "Kristin's gross. Kristin's dirty," right? Like it's kind of like what happened to the Jewish people. It really, they're gross, they're dirty, they're diseased, yada, yada. So it spreads, and I come back to school that Monday, and I have no friends anymore. But I remember hearing that person saying that following statement. And once I realized it was me that they were referencing, I backed away and I went and sat on the swing and I swang on the playground by myself. I was free at that moment. I was able to go swing and realize I'm at least not following people around that don't want me there. And that is I've realized that about myself. That is very rare for somebody to be able to do. It's very hurtful. I was very hurt. It was very hurtful. But I'm not going to go and be around people that don't truly appreciate my existence or my presence. And I really want to be able to help people and empower people that don't necessarily have that in them.
I think, that's an extremely rare quality. I'm not sure how I would have handled that. I had the bullies that I wrote about in my book, and then I had some friends. Of course, there was some betrayal, but I don't know if I had that. I'm not sure how I would have handled it. I like to believe I would have, went to swing by myself. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I do know this, Kristin, that as I delved into psychology, history, human behavior, body language, I can talk to someone quickly and determine, like, if they've got self-esteem issues. And when I do executive coaching, one of the things that I've had to work on, it seems like probably 70% of my clients have been self-esteem issues. They don't feel worthy, they don't feel good enough. And that's something that is difficult to overcome. So I hope people listening understand that story. There might be some time periods where you have to trek alone.
Yes.
But as you do that and your confidence builds, this was my saying all the time, confidence is a magnet. Right. And then you'll have more people around you than you want. And that's when you got to go through that selectiveness. But the second thing is I'm very excited about this book. We've had some preliminary conversations. I think it's uncharted territory, the way you're approaching it. And, man, it's going to be exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited, too.
We'll keep our listeners posted on that.
Yeah.
We won't go too much further, but I've got a few more. I hope you do as well, Kristin.
Oh, yeah. No, I do. I think it's your turn to answer a question. I've got you.
I was trying to keep going.
What would the title of your book be if your worst enemy wrote it? You're welcome.
That's so difficult because when you are in law enforcement, I had situations. I can honestly tell you, I treated everyone with dignity and respect, but there was these people, we used to call them the 1%ers, who just literally would probably kill you on the right day. So the nature of my job, I had to do certain things, and it made enemies. So I had some people then, maybe they remember me, maybe they don't. I hope they don't. But, they would just probably say that I, was dirty, that I undermined them, that, I wanted them in prison as long as possible, something like to that effect.
Yeah.
If it was someone that I knew closely, probably narcissist, something like that. Even at my height of what I believe as Academy Director, the height of leadership, when I'd matured and developed into the position, I made a lot of mistakes early on, which is another reason I'm so passionate about what I do. But I had one or two employees that would tell you I was a terrible boss. Right now, if you interviewed them, you would get conflicting statements, drastically conflicting. And if you're in leadership, you're going to have that. If you're decisive, you can't make everyone happy.
Right.
So I don't know if that really answered it, but it'd probably be something along the lines of narcissist or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I think anyone on social media that does what we do has been called a narcissist. And only we are going to know. We took the test, Ron, so we know where we're at on that. And you did better than I did.
Well, here's the problem. I was reminded of this. Did you know I never told my score on that episode?
Oh, you're right.
I never told my score. I was surprised that someone actually noticed that.
Oh my gosh. So you got called out?
I got called out.
Nice.
Well, actually,
Here's
it was kind of complimentary. It was complimentary. They were like, I love the way you kept evading, and Kristin never called you on it. It was more, they were complimenting me because I was able to just slide through and never tell my score.
Well, it's funny because I'm generally very, I'll just go for it. I'm pretty brazen. But I was like, I think Ron is drawing a line here, so I'm not going to cross it. And are you interested in telling? It was out of 40.
I'm very interested in telling.
Here's your chance.
It was 42.
You're right.
It was almost identical. You and I had almost identical scores. I do think I was one below. What were you, at 22?
Yeah, I was 21 and you were 17.
No, I wasn't 17.
What?
No, it was either, it was 1 point.
You took it 5 times then?
I took it 5 times. I argued with myself. I was honest about that. There were some questions I felt were just oddly wording. And I get into the linguistic part of it, wondering why they ask it that way, trying to figure it out. So, but it was along a 2021.
Okay.
If I was judging myself harshly, I might have went a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I have changed my mind on one question. You asked me, the question is, would you rule the world? And I said that I would rule the homeowners association.
Yes.
I don't know. The world's so screwed up. I might just give it a whirl. Who knows?
Yeah. Hey, I think, I won't go there. Yeah. I think you would do just fine.
I've got some lighthearted questions.
All right.
That I want to hear from you. But what is a funny story of your family? Now, you already told us a story about someone break. I'll tell you what. Let's go to the next one. How about what's your favorite holiday movie and what does it say about you? And I want to answer that one as well.
Okay, Christmas Vacation for sure. And Uncle Eddie, The Shitter's Full, all of that. And the wild thing is, every time I watch it, I find something new that I did not notice in the past 50 viewings. So that movie is just a gem. What about you, Ron?
Well, we were close. That's probably number 2, but I'm going to go more modern.
Okay.
And it's Elf.
Oh, that's a great one. That's my number 2.
It's so creative, but it also tells me that during the holidays, I get in that chill mode, and I'm not out there trying to hustle. I'm not trying to be the best version of me. I'm trying to enjoy myself. And it's a movie that my daughters love, and I think there's a lot of hidden gems in that movie as well. So I do think it is Elf right now.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, and that was before all the CGI. They could do that easily now. But I watched how they did that behind the scenes, which, by the way, I absolutely believe I'm obsessive. If I really like a movie, I'm going to go and watch behind the scenes. I want to know how they put it together, how much CGI. Game of Thrones. If you haven't watched that and you watch the CGI first, don't. It's going to ruin it for you.
Okay.
But it's absolutely amazing what they can do with green screens and CGI. So
Right. Talk about behind the scenes. There is a Netflix series out right now about how they made American Gladiator. And I used to watch that with my dad.
Oh,
And
I want to see that.
yeah, it's pretty wild. They started out very humble beginnings, and it was brutal. It's not staged at all, and nothing like WWF or WWE. They were throwing people on concrete.
Oh, I've got a
they
story
came
you're
a
not going
long
to
way.
believe. You're not going to
Yeah,
believe
let's
this.
hear it.
My chiropractor friend, Dr. Tom, was going to be on the show, and I'm trying to remember this correctly, but in the filming, he blew his knee out. So I don't think it actually made the production, but he made it through and blew his knee out. It was
oh my goodness.
It was
okay.
It was tough.
So it's funny because that's one of the things they're covering is how many injuries they had and a lot of blown out knees, and then they would just have to, oh, all right, because they didn't think ahead on their staging and how it was, and so I believe it. He's probably in this documentary. You should watch it.
I'm going to call him up now because we still play guitar together and hang out together. So I'm going to have to find out if he knows about it, number one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's old footage. It started in 89. I didn't realize it was around that long, and then they bring it forward. But so I like the behind the scenes stuff myself as well.
Kristin,
that's pretty cool.
I've got a few more, but we're getting pretty close on time, and I almost would like to do this again, but could we move down? I would like to get your, gosh, there were so many questions I want to ask you. But we just pasted in some questions, and this is on industry expertise. And I think because we do executive coaching, because we do training and we're expanding the company, I think it's very important that we discuss a little bit of this, at least in the in this part of the podcast. So you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm good. We'll skip past whimsical and off the wall.
Yes.
And we'll save that for a later date.
Yeah. But there was some I wanted to ask you for sure.
There's some good ones.
Let me give you this one.
Okay.
What's a common myth about your job or field of expertise? And let's do banking first, not your social media influencing and your executive coaching. Let's look at
banking. That every banker is rich. Actually, banking is one of the most underpaid industries out there. And people think, there's a few things. When you work with money, they think that you're always tempted to take it. I'm like, no, that becomes paper to you. It's just paper that passes through your hands like a sticky note.
Yeah.
That's one. But yeah, bankers don't make a lot of money unless you're at the top or an investment banker. Bankers are not rich. And actually, a lot of bankers don't even know how to manage their own money. So there's that. They can manage yours. They don't do a good job at managing their own, holistically speaking.
I grew up believing that. If I saw someone in a bank in the office, I just assumed they had these great money management skills, these great investment skills, and they're probably, rich. So that was that's interesting to hear you. So what about bankers' hours? Do you guys go in early, or is that true?
Bankers' hours are beautiful. That's actually why I wanted to go into the industry, because I had been working jobs where you work late, and I started pretty young, but in banking, but it was because I was foreshadowing. I wanted to have nights off and weekends off and holidays off, just like a teacher. And you do. So bankers' hours are beautiful. And if you think about it, unless you're in a higher ranking job, you really don't need to be there until 8 a.m. So you're not going in at 6. And then you're off 5 o'clock, 5:30. So bankers' hours are definitely beautiful, and some would argue that is why, that's why I was in it for so long. You get great benefits and you get great hours, and it does overshadow the pay, I would say, in a lot of ways. If you're family-oriented like I am, where I just really wanted to be available for my family.
Awesome. What do you got for me?
Okay, what about you? What's the biggest challenge you're facing in your role, which right now, entrepreneur, and how are you tackling it?
That's a great question. There's many challenges. Number one, when you are an entrepreneur, I remember retiring with a full staff and plugging a little laptop in the corner. The number one, the quality that I've realized, it has to be optimism. I became an entrepreneur during the pandemic. There was no real business, and you have to just, especially when you're selling intellectual property, you just have to motivate yourself and believe that something good is going to happen. And I
Right.
tackled an 8-hour leadership course. If I could go backwards, I would have done a 1 hour, then an 8 hour.
Yeah.
But the second thing that I will mention is dealing with either dishonest or incompetent people. And I have gotten burned, and I started realizing a leadership weakness that I had was I like to move quickly. I'm driven.
Right.
I'm looking at the prize. So I thought, I did a little research. I'll hire this person, and I'll be off and running, and I can move on to the next adventure or the next venture. And I found out quickly that there's a lot of dishonest people. There's a lot of people that oversell themselves. They think one size fits all, and it doesn't. That's been the biggest shock for me as far as a culture shock is the dishonesty that I've seen in some of the marketing circles and some of the sales circles. I wasn't accustomed to that, especially on that level. And I'm dealing with a situation right now that you know about, Kristin.
Yeah.
And I'm really shocked. I would say this to our listeners, that hold people accountable and don't hire anyone that you can't get a personal reference. There's one thing about it. I've tightened up on who I do business with now, and it's working out a lot better for me. A lot better.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, on that also, if you can't see yourself, if you're not comfortable, this is to people out there, if you're not comfortable holding someone that you plan on hiring accountable, say it's a family member, I have no problem holding my family members accountable. That is not always the case. So if you're going to have somebody join what you're doing and they're going to help you out, even if you're just paying them for, pieces of whatever you're working on, make sure that you are comfortable setting expectations, following up on expectations, and not letting any BS get in the way. Because I could see that is very different than when you're running someone else's business.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Let's switch to, I had you discuss banking. Let's do this one on, let's say, influencer.
Okay.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out as an influencer or in this type of career?
Yeah, it's definitely to know, one, to do it for genuine reasons, to always be true to your mission, and to never sway from that. So for me, I've had plenty of opportunities that could have paid me for this and that to promote something that wasn't aligned with my values. Maybe it wasn't made in the USA, different things that I've turned down because it didn't align with who I am and who my base is. And so I think you need to, one, you don't have to be overly planned, in my opinion, but you need to be genuine and you need to have parameters that you just will not go outside of, and never sacrifice who you are or what your mission is for a few bucks or for a few likes. You want to keep it really genuine. And so that's what I say, because we call them grifters in our industry. Lots of grifters out there, and they're basically looking to make money off of whatever social movement is happening. And I refuse to be a grifter, even if that means I'm not going to make the bucks that the grifters are making. I can go to sleep at night and be proud of myself for putting my foot down and not falling outside of those parameters that I set for myself.
Amen. Wow. That is great advice. I agree 100%. I had an opportunity recently that I had to turn down that didn't align with my values. And no, it wasn't my OnlyFans page, if people are thinking.
It feels good, though, doesn't it, to just be... It's Africa Brooke, who's one of my favorite motivational speakers. She said, live life like you're already canceled. And I referenced that earlier. But like, people that aren't in social media, I guess, don't all know what that means to be canceled. But you've heard of people are being canceled out there left and right. And that's if their views, their opinions don't align with what's currently the fad or acceptable, right? And so if you live life like you've already been canceled, you're truly free. And that's powerful right there.
It really is. And Kristin, I talk a lot, and I have my entire life, about individuality. I was never a big group guy. And I used to think maybe that was a personality flaw. I'm not a big, I don't have to go join a fitness group to work out. Now, I've done it, and I probably pushed it a little harder. But it's like we've lost individuality. It's groupthink. And I think that's so important what you said. I I think there's a sad outcome that no one talks about because it's all based on opinion. But the sad outcome is people lose themselves and they go against things that they probably would not ordinarily. And God made everybody in an individual. We have a unique fingerprint. Unique. Everything about us is unique. And then we turn around and we just throw it to a group to let the group decide for us. So I think that's valiant, and it's very important what you said. Gosh, unfortunately, Kristin, why don't you give me one more? And that was so good. That was worth ending on. But
one more. Okay.
Give me one more.
Let's see. What occupation, other than anything you've already done, would you like to try?
Well, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I'm still obsessed. I watch old Jordan, Bird, and I get in the arguments about LeBron and Jordan and all that. But I have to say that I've been doing some recent stuff around the medical field, and I think I would like to have been a doctor. I think people come to you, they're very vulnerable. You have an opportunity to help. You have an opportunity to do great things. Now, again, I would want to keep my values. I think a lot of times in medicine, and I think our audience will agree that we're reactive, medicine is, instead of proactive. And I've been studying a lot on nutrition, health, and things that we can do to be proactive. But I think that's a fascinating field, and every day you could make people's lives better and help them. So I think it would be something aligned with the medical field.
Yeah, what's funny is that's exactly an ER doctor is what I had for myself.
Was it really?
It really is. Yeah, it's funny when you're a borderline hypochondriac, and I like to say I'm on the hypochondriac spectrum, just on the lower end, but you look up a lot of things and you become knowledgeable, and also when you're into the health industry, and you just know a lot, and I truly enjoy medical, anything, everything, diagnosing. It's all, I think it would be very fascinating.
I think I didn't realize it as much until I started doing some work at a facility, because usually I had a negative connotation. I only went to a doctor when I was feeling poorly or to visit someone. Yeah. And I left there thinking, gosh, I think I wanted to go in this field anyway.
Right. Well, I like the ER doctor aspect of it too versus the doctor that you see. Because imagine, when you're in the ER, someone comes to you, they need immediate assistance, and they really are going to put a lot of weight in what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're recommending. Imagine seeing somebody like the general physician, and you see somebody and you can see that they're severely obese and they're diabetic, and you run their blood and their numbers are just horrendous, and you suggest doing ABC. They're not going to do it. It's in the ER when you really have people, you have the patients that listen to you. So yeah, Kristin, pretty powerful stuff.
I took a 2-day training program. It was based out of D.C. We were in one of the Virginia areas. I traveled so much that it runs together sometimes. But it was about, you were the CEO of a hospital, or you were the head of a hospital, and you had to prioritize resources, finances, determine what's the most critical. And it was a pretty interesting, it was built like a Monopoly type game. And you had teams, and you had to work as a group to determine your priorities. And it was pretty fascinating. It was one of the few, I'm usually not, to be honest, that impressed with leadership programs, but it was a fascinating idea. And it did cause you to do some introspection, which is what I believe is so vital in leadership programs. But yeah, that was really cool. Guys, Kristin,
it was fun.
Thanks for your vulnerability. I don't think people will be listening to the podcast anymore. I'm not sure they're going to like the way you treated that poor young lady that got dumped out at your doorstep. But
oh my gosh. I have a low BS tolerance. Always have. Sorry. She was bandaged up. The wounds were surface. The wounds were surface.
It's okay, Kristin. Let it go.
Let it go.
All right.
Live like you're canceled. Who cares?
Guys,
who cares what Ron thinks?
Yeah, who cares? Listen, I am for those listening who've stuck out with us, we're so pleased. This has been, I get to do a lot of exciting things, but Chris and I have talked behind the scenes. This has been such an exciting journey. To be honest with you, when I wanted to do this, there were so many podcasts. I'm like, as I said, I'm not a group kind of guy. I'm an individual. And I kept listening for things that, is there an opening for this? Is there something? And then I found the right partner, and you guys have been so supportive. We've not, even begun to buy ads or anything, and the podcast is growing. We're so excited, and we're going to continue to do the research, continue to make it really strong, and hopefully we can all learn and grow together. I've learned so much since we started, Kristin, because we do so much research.
Right,
and I've been able to
absolutely.
apply in my training some of the things that we have learned, in this podcast journey. So what's your thoughts about the podcast?
You asking me or are you asking the
I'm
audience?
asking you.
I'm just kidding. I feel like being a little sassy today. Sorry, Ron.
It's okay.
No, it's been absolutely great. I agree with you. And it's one of those things where we are excited to do this every week. There was a meme that I saw recently, and it said, I'm going to butcher this, but it basically said, in a nutshell, how does your stomach feel Sunday night? However your stomach feels Sunday night about going to work Monday morning will tell you if you like your job or not. And that we both get excited to jump on and record and to dive into these topics.
Absolutely.
Even the research aspect of it, we both enjoy. And so that speaks volumes right there.
Okay, what can people do to support us, Kristin? You had no idea I was going to ask you that.
I had no idea. Not prepared. All right, everyone. Find us on social. We have a Facebook group that is most active. We need you to subscribe if you have not already. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And then also, please rate us. Give us a rating on whatever platform you listen to us on. That helps us greatly with growth. And so we thank you very much.
All right, everyone, thanks so much. Be the leader you're meant to be.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.